Our guest this week on Personally Speaking is the actor Chris Conroy. Chris has been with us before. He's an actor from television and the movies and theater, but an interesting guy who's been challenged by his personal health and lived through COVID and all the rest of it and has come out stronger than ever. A great human being. Join us on Personally Speaking. Our guest is Chris Conroy. Hello and welcome to Personally Speaking. I'm your host, Msgr Jim Lisante, and actor Chris Conroy joins me now. Chris grew up in a small town near Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and although he was successful as a student athlete playing basketball for St. Joseph's Catholic High School, Chris decided to forego a basketball scholarship to pursue a degree in filmmaking at Point Park University. Chris then decided he wanted the challenge of being in front of the camera. Some of his film credits include The Congressman, where he co-starred with the great actor Treat Williams, and recurring roles on Blue Bloods, the Emmy Award-winning series Mr. Robot, God Friended Me, and CBS's FBI. In 2018, after feeling unwell for some time, Chris experienced a splitting headache and was diagnosed with a brain abscess caused by an infection, a potentially life-threatening condition. Less than 3 months after his brain surgery, Chris was back in front of the cameras. He booked the Mercedes-Benz Say the Word commercial that ran during the Super Bowl. Chris is here to tell us about his life, his career, about his faith and values, those that continue to sustain him. Joining me now, I'm so pleased to welcome back to Personally Speaking, the great actor, Chris Conroy. Chris Conroy, for our listeners and watchers, is a wonderful actor, and we'll talk about that, but certainly even more a wonderful person. Chris, something unusual happened last time you were on. I don't think it ever happened before. I got messages, emails, and things like that from people in your family who had seen our interview and wanted
Oh
to
yeah.
assure me, they wanted to assure me that they were happy with the interview because the greatness of the man came across. That they've always
Oh.
known that you were this wonderful guy, but that you came across as the wonderful guy you are truly in the interview. So I was just intrigued by what kind of family does that, where they say, "We love this guy so much, we want to let people know." What a great and wonderful human being he is. So tell me about this family that is so supportive and obviously so much has your back.
Yeah, I think I don't know who it was who who wrote in,
I
but
remember it was certainly an uncle and a couple of cousins. Yeah,
yeah. Well, I think my family, especially on the Conroy side, well, both sides. I don't want to say anything ill of my mother's side, but my dad came from a large Irish Catholic family.
okay.
He was one of six, and they all had at least I feel like I had 20 some cousins. And so we just had a big family and as you know the Irish cat they had a lot of kids back,
Yeah, yeah,
so
right. Back in
many
the
I mean
day.
there's Conroys all over the place, but we were so close growing up. We would do like family vacations and all be in the same house. Like
Mm,
imagine you got 40 people in one house. We would go to Hilton Head, South Carolina, and there were a couple years when the schedules lined up that everybody stayed in the same house. And oddly enough, my father still lives in the same house that he grew up in.
wow.
Um, yeah, my dad just turned, well, I don't know if he's going to want me saying this, but he just turned 69. I don't care if he gets mad at me, it's fine. But yeah, he just turned 69, and aside from college and whatnot, he's lived in that same house, and most of my family lives within maybe a 30-minute, 40-minute radius of one another.
Wow. Okay.
So we've all just been always been super close. Christmas, Easter, birthday parties,
Hmm.
graduation parties, 4th of July celebrations. Like we always made sure to always be together, and it always did happen, and it still does happen. So that's really sweet that they
Yeah.
wrote in. I think that's wonderful. And
Yeah.
there's a Conroy family newsletter. Everybody stays in touch, which is a huge blessing because, living in New York, sometimes I don't know who's having a baby or who's
Right.
getting married. It's kind of hard to keep track of all this stuff. But I do think that, in respect to what we're talking about here today, I do think a
Hmm.
lot of it is faith-based.
Yeah.
Um, I because of those strong Catholic roots, I feel like family took precedent. And yes, I have a great hardworking family members and people do very well in business and so forth. But I feel like family and relationship was always at the crux
Yeah.
of the way that we interacted with one another. So I think what happened just kind of speaks to that.
Chris Conroy, aside from being an actor, is also someone who was an athlete, maybe still is an athlete. And when I was
Yeah.
reading about you, Chris, and your time in a Catholic high school, and you were the star of the basketball team and all that, I'm thinking to myself, so this guy is a great athlete. He's a really good student. He's got looks and personality. He goes into acting. With all these things, what can happen sometimes is with people blowing smoke up your proverbial dress, it's easy to
Yeah.
ego run your life. What did you do throughout your life to this point to make sure that ego didn't get the best of you?
Um, I do think that that started with my parents.
Mm,
And because they are both of my parents are very humble people. Um, and it's their job. Occasionally I can get a little my head can get a little big from time to time, when I have some success in something, or if I'm at the gym and I hit a personal record, or any random success, I can gloat a little bit. And my parents have always made sure to keep me humble. And I mostly gloat for sport just because it's fun
right.
to do. But I think because of those values instilled in me, that hey, just because you achieve success in this very particular moment doesn't
Mhm.
mean that you're going to do it tomorrow. And that was also solidified by when I moved to New York. I met this great acting coach who also kind of carried over that sort of moral compass and passed it
Yeah.
along to me as well. And he kind of became my mentor. His name's David Vadim. I've been working with him for like 15 years now. I don't know. I'm losing track, somewhere around 15 years.
Right.
But he always made sure that what I love about him most is that when you do well, he gives you all the credit in the world, and when you're not doing so well, he makes sure that you know that you are, excuse my language, effing up.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
uh and that's been a constant, like even now after I've been working with him for so long, he treats me the same way now. It's like
Mm.
even though I've had success and has credits and I have a resume, it's like he treats me now the same as he did when it was like my first day there.
Well, that's
And
great.
so there's this kind of energy of like a don't forget where you came from. Don't forget how far you've come. So I do
Hmm.
appreciate the successes that I have, but I also know that there's so much work to be done at all times, always. And
Hmm.
that's what makes you get out of bed in the morning. If you find yourself to be so successful, you're gonna be like, well, I achieved everything already. Why do I have to work so hard? But I understand that the greatest achievements are always in front of me. And those are the things that make me excited. And I think so to answer your question, I think my parents and my family, a lot of those same family who wrote you in emails or Facebook messages are the same ones to give me credit on one hand, but also keep me humble on the other. And the friend group I've cultivated in New York does exactly the same thing.
Ah,
So I'm just surrounded by great people, as I really think that's what it comes down to.
and obviously they have a great sense of your own goodness. Chris Conroy is our guest. I mentioned he's an actor. We'll talk more about who he is as a person here. I'm just wondering, as I mentioned, we talked last, Chris, in 2021. We were deep into the COVID experience, the pandemic.
Hmm.
For
Hmm.
guys in the creative arts like you, where you need to perform, that's what you do, that's what you're here for,
Right.
among other things. What did you do with the pandemic?
Well, luckily, so I'm part of a group of actors who meets twice weekly.
Mm-hmm.
And again, my acting coach is the one who's kind of leads that group. And so we were doing, once it became clear that it was sort of safe to be outside and socially distanced and stuff, we
Mm-hmm.
started doing classes in Central Park. or sessions in Central Park doing scene work as soon as it was appropriate to do so. So I never really stopped. We started doing Zoom classes, and basically the way the class works is on Mondays we do scene study and character development, and then on Wednesdays it's more focused on audition technique.
Hmm.
And so we started doing those on Zoom almost right away, as soon as it made sense, like as soon as kind of everyone was like, okay, I guess the worst part of that first several weeks or month was kind of like, and I felt like people were in a place where they needed to start doing something so they didn't go crazy inside their house.
Right.
And so as soon as that moment came, we started doing classes on Zoom, and then as soon as a little bit more time passed, we were doing socially distanced work sessions in Central Park at that Bethesda Terrace. If you've ever been there, there's that big
Hmm.
fountain kind of in the middle
Right.
of
Right.
Central Park. And so we started getting after it there, and we've been doing it. We were doing it outside for a long time. We did some session work sessions like with a foot of snow down there. So we were just, there's kind of a spirit amongst this group of artists that I'm friends with that it's like, rain or shine type of thing.
Yeah.
And we really lived up to that. And so so again, we've transitioned a little bit of the work back to a studio in Midtown,
Hmm.
but also we still do classes outside just almost for nostalgia purposes, just
Yeah.
to remember that time when everybody else was sort of pushed inside and most acting classes were on Zoom. We were actually out there in person, which there's no replacement for working with somebody in person. Zoom just doesn't quite cut it, especially with it works. I mean, listen, it's an
Right. Right.
incredible,
Saved us.
incredible
Yeah.
tool. But if you're doing a scene with somebody and you get the blocking down and you can actually get close to them, and there's just no replacement for doing scenes in person, and I think you could probably attest to that as well. There's it's
Good, Chris. Chris Conroy's our
Yeah.
guest. Chris, when I was reading about you, one of the things you said was that for my life, a lot of it was the formation was family and faith and sports, and that continues to be very, very important to you. But I
Yes,
mentioned that because when you mentioned faith, I was intrigued. You come from, is it Breckenridge in Pennsylvania?
it's called, yeah, Brackenridge. Yeah,
Brackenridge.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So you have this great community, and among the people there, there's a deep faith. But I'm thinking when we talk to Kelly O'Hara, the actress, or Victoria Clark or Margaret Colin, they're all people who are seriously into believing. And they say that when you come to New York, which is a highly secularized society, it's kind of hard to hold on to your spiritual roots, your Catholic roots. I'm just wondering, like, when you're not directly connected to family and
Mhm.
faith and the community that raised you, how do you keep God alive in your life when you're in a very, very, in some ways, non-believing city?
Sure. I think again, it's the attachment to my roots. And by the way, I still speak to my parents probably. I try to call my mother at least every day, if not every other day.
Good.
Um, and so again, the morals that they provided me when I was young,
Hmm.
they still do. They still impart wisdom and they still impart morals, even if it's
Yeah.
over the phone.
Right.
And I speak, it's fun when I call my mom, she puts me on speaker, and then my dad walks in the room, and then it's this joint session of me chatting with them, and then sometimes my nephew comes in, my brother's there. Um, so in addition to the those morals sticking with me,
Yeah.
over the phone, also the community of people uh, that I hang out with here are
Hmm.
also have a tremendous strength of character. And by the
Okay.
way, some of them are, and they're from all walks of life. They're not, they're
Yeah.
some of them are Jewish, some of them are Muslim,
Mhm.
um, some of them are Catholic, some of them are Protestant, and so on. But I do think that the people that I have luckily been able to get close with all have a tremendous strength of character, and I also think all have that spirituality as well. So
Hmm.
even if I'm not arguing, but having a conversation about faith with somebody who has a different faith than I do, um, that's it's just kind of invigorates that spirit in you to
Hmm.
basically keep asking questions, keep yourself grounded in spirituality, and actually keep yourself educated sometimes. Because I have friends who ask me questions about my faith, and I'm like, I actually don't know the answer to that.
Right.
Which is good because then I go and look it up, and then
Yeah.
you continue your education. Because again, it is always a it's an ever evolving process to become the man that I constantly want to become. And
Yeah.
again, the people that luckily, thank God that my parents are wonderful and my entire extended family is terrific.
Hmm.
But luckily, the group of people that I've surrounded myself with here also have that same strength of character and moral compass.
Chris Conroy is our guest, a wonderful actor, as I mentioned. But Chris, in the introduction, I mentioned to the people who listen and watch this program that you'd also been through that incredible health challenge in terms of what they removed
Hmm.
from your wonderful brain. Tell me, in
Yeah.
the years since then, how's
Hmm.
your health been, and what's the latest?
Oh, my health's been great. I got
Good,
a clean bill of health from my
good.
brain surgeon probably 6 to 8 months ago, something like that. So, um, I don't know. I think since the last time we spoke, I actually had to have my surgery redone.
Oh God.
Not because yeah,
Yeah.
fun, not because I had another mass that grew there, but because the plates that they had put in
Hmm.
they started to basically touch the tissues underneath, and I had a grand mal seizure. So I had to, but I'm good now. I got a clean bill of health. I said we started with good news, and I'll tell you the story.
Good, good.
So I had a grand mal seizure, and they had to remove those plates and put in a permanent plate.
Okay.
And so that was I had to have a whole nother surgery. I think that was like probably later in 2021. Um, and then, there was a little bit of recovery after that, and
Hmm.
I had to buzz my head and the whole thing. As you can see, my hair has grown
It's
back
come back.
quite
Yes.
quite tremendously, actually. But yeah, so that was a whole process, and then there's one or two other things that don't even bear mentioning. But yeah, so ever since then, I was on some uh, seizure medication. I'm off that. My doctor
Mm,
gave me the clean bill of health recently, so now it's just like a story and it's sort of an anecdote to use about
right.
anytime when you're in a place where you're frustrated or annoyed with the way things are going. I'm like, well, you went through that, so you can kind of you could probably get through mostly anything.
Actors I know will say to me over the years, because we've had hundreds of them on, they'll say that the community they act with, whether it's in theater or movies or television, becomes like family for them. And my question has always been like, yeah, but it's short term. You do a few months maybe, and then you go your separate ways. You made a film called The Congressman, and I thought to myself when Treat Williams died, what
Yeah.
was the experience of working on that film? And everyone seemed to say, not just because he died in that motorcycle accident, but having worked with him, they thought he was a wonderful human being. So this becomes part of the family for you. What was that experience like, and what was he like?
Yeah.
And how do you handle the fact that when it's over, you go back to your normal life?
Um, that's so funny that you say that because Treat is one of the very few actors who I remain friends with over the years.
Oh,
He actually, me and some of my closest friends and colleagues, we made a pilot over COVID, and Treat played a old crotchety cab driver in it.
oh
And
wow.
I'll send you the scene actually.
Yes.
I'll send you a scene from the pilot. He's like, he's very much playing against type. Like he often plays like the good father or,
Hmm.
kind of like maybe a stern but like wholesome kind of like
Right.
it's more of like it's even if he's not a father, he's a paternal figure. He's kind of an authority figure, but one with good morals. And in this, he kind of played a crotchety old New York City cab driver who was screaming out the window at people. It was very fun. But no, ever since I don't know, Treat reminded me of my Uncle Terry, who
Okay.
passed away in I think 2016. He had pancreatic cancer, and he was one of my favorite people on this planet, my dad's best friend. And for some reason, I don't know if they look similar or something. It was something about their energy, and I remember gravitating towards him on the congressman because I felt like what I was doing on that movie, maybe the producers weren't like they were kind of unsure if I was right for the part or something. And I remember Treat coming up to me and saying, I see what you're doing and keep doing it. And he told me after the fact that he had to fight with the producers who were watching the dailies that I watched this guy on set. He was like, "You remind me of a young Mickey Rourke, Chris. You remind me."
Uh,
I'm like, "Well, that's nice. That's
yeah, yeah, yeah.
quite the praise, especially because they went to acting class or they were like roommates or something back in the 80s,
Okay.
Treat and Mickey. But I went out to dinner with his family and he invited me to fly his plane out, and
Oi.
he lived in Vermont,
Right.
and he was one of my most favorite people in this business, without
No.
question. Without question, he was a wonderful family man.
Yeah.
Um, Really loyal, always took my phone calls, would call me out of the blue from
Mhm.
time to time, and just to BS over the phone.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But so in other words, you're right that uh sometimes you do a shoot and you part your way, you go your separate ways,
Hmm.
and you feel it feels very intimate just because shooting something is so intense
Yeah.
because it's 12, 14-hour days. You're there shooting and like you need to make time, and they're rushing you to the next set and you're moving here, getting your hair and makeup done there, changing your clothes and so on. It's just a very intense, condensed process. And so it feels intimate in that way. And a lot of times people do part ways, but for some reason with him,
Hmm.
um, we remain close. He sent me a picture from the cockpit of his plane several days before he
Oh,
sadly passed away. And it's funny, this group of actors that I meet with weekly, many of them were involved in the production of this pilot, and so they all got to know him as well. So in some sense, I folded him into the family that I meet
that's
with
great,
every
Chris.
every week. So yeah, I'm glad you brought him up
Yeah.
because he is one of the most classy, family-oriented, solid individuals I've ever met in the film business or otherwise. And he
Chris Conroy
deserves
is our
that
guest.
praise.
He's a wonderful actor, but I'm so glad that that's the way he came across. But I'm glad to hear from someone who knew him. That was Treat Williams. And by the way, the comparison to Mickey Rourke's interesting. We've had him on the show, and he said that there was a point, which I hope you never come to, where he was just suicidal, decided to end his life, but he thought he'd go to church one more time. He ran into Father Pete Colapietro in New York. They went to the rectory. They opened a bottle of wine, smoked a few cigarettes, and by the end, Mickey decided he would stay around, and he's still around,
Yeah,
but
he sure is.
he's an
He
amazing guy.
should.
Final question, I
Yeah.
promise. Chris Conroy, we are living in an age where not just America is so divided, but like the world is so divided, and dangerous, terrible wars, and people being irreconcilable with each other. You're on one extreme or the other. In this crazy world, which seems so divided, seems some days to be hopeless, is Chris Conroy a guy who has hope in his heart and believes somehow this world of ours is going to come out of this and move forward?
1000%.
Okay.
Um, I in you can't fix problems at large because clearly there are, and everybody knows that no matter which cultural side you find yourself on.
Yeah.
But uh, in these sorts of moments, I feel like the all you can do is do internal work on yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And when you do that, hopefully you affect several more people who go, "Oh, that guy has hope. That guy has like since COVID, I've only gotten, I feel um, more energetic, more of an artist. I've gotten even in better physical shape. So I feel I don't know if it's because the times are a little crazy that has compelled me to actually maximize who I am as a person. But
Okay.
I've noticed that rubs off on other people. So I think if you can inspire people from inward out, meaning just the way that you live your life.
Mm-hmm.
And I know a lot of things are online now. A lot of things are online, so people are watching how folks behave online. But in my life, I think about me and my community and the close circle around me, and if I can have a positive effect on them. And yes, a lot of folks do look to me for as an example, especially, as I'm maturing. And I think they look at the way that I live my life, and many of them have admitted they're like, "Oh, I watch you from afar. I don't really talk about it, but I see how you move in the world, and that makes me want to fight harder, perhaps, than I do." And so, I don't think any one person can solve the greater problems, but I think if you live right for yourself,
Yeah.
those folks around you will notice and hopefully want to do that themselves. But no, I've never been more excited, and I know it sounds a little out there, but I've never been more excited about the direction and the
Mm-hmm.
possibilities than I am right now. Because I think, sometimes in the past, you get a little complacent, you take things for granted. There is no opportunity to take things for granted right now because the problems are like right in your face.
Yeah.
So, no, I'm super excited. I wake up every day. I'm like, all right, calm down. Maybe a little too much energy today. Maybe
I'm
a little
glad.
too much
I'm glad
energy.
you
Let's
wake up that
relax.
way, Chris. I wish everybody would
Yes,
wake up that way.
yes,
I want to
yes.
thank Chris Conroy for being a guest once again on Personally Speaking. As last time, Chris, a delightful conversation. You give us hope. You give us your energy. It's a wonderful thing. I like very much that last point about we really can't. None of us can transform the whole world, but we can transform our world and make a difference
That's right.
among the people that we touch in our lives. And you're doing that right now. So for our listeners and viewers, I hope you get to see Chris Conroy as he acts in TV and movies and everything else. But I wanted him to talk about who he is as a man, as a person, as an evolving and growing and wonderful human being. And he did that. Chris, thanks again for being with us on Personally Speaking. And we'll make sure that your parents get a hold of this video, okay?
Oh, they're definitely gonna see it. I,
Good.
I, I see I like to be generous and then also rub it in their face how generous I am.
You
It's
did a
very
good
healthy.
job.
It's very healthy.
You
Yeah.
did a good job.
Monsignor, thank you so much. God bless you. I really appreciate you having me on. This was terrific.
Thanks for being with us on Personally Speaking. If you need to reach me for any reason, you can do that at personallyspeakingpodcast@gmail.com. You probably listened to this program on the Catholic channel, 129. And you can do more than that. You can watch it as well on YouTube if you like by searching under Personally Speaking with Monsignor Jim Lisante. We're also on Facebook at Personally Speaking with Monsignor Jim Lisante. We're on Instagram at Personally Speaking Podcast. Please share and let others know about Personally Speaking. I'm delighted to serve as host and executive producer of Personally Speaking. Our producer is Lisa Jandovich. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll be with you again next time on Personally Speaking.